Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Chicago Public Library. I'm Jennifer Lezak with the Cultural, Civic, and Literary Engagement team in the Adult Services Department. And on behalf of everyone at Chicago Public Library, welcome. Before we begin, we ask that you please silence your cell phones. I would like to thank the Chicago Public Library staff who worked to make this event possible, and our bookstore partner, Sandmeyer's. Books are available for purchase in the lobby. I was just told they sold out and have sent somebody back to the store to get more copies, so you might have to get that after the program is done. The author will sign books at the conclusion of the program. We will call you up to get your book signed in groups, so please remain seated after the program and wait for instructions if you wish to get your book signed. Tonight's event is also being live streamed on CPL's YouTube and Facebook channels and will be available for on-demand viewing immediately following the event. After the conversation, our guests will take questions from the audience from those who line up at the microphone in front of stage only. Virtual viewers, please put your questions in the chat. Tonight it is my pleasure to welcome entertainer, television host, magician, and writer Penn Jillette to discuss his new novel, Random. Penn Jillette is a cultural phenomenon as a solo personality and as half of the world-famous Emmy Award-winning magic duo Penn and Teller, whose live show spent years on Broadway and is now the longest-running headlining show in Las Vegas. The pair have their own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Jillette co-hosted the Showtime series Penn and Teller Bullshit, which was nominated for 13 Emmy Awards and won him a Writers Guild Award. He currently co-hosts the CW Network competition series Penn and Teller Fool Us. His weekly podcast, Penn Sunday School, was the #1 downloaded podcast on iTunes during its debut week and was named by iTunes as Best New Comedy Podcast. He is the author of numerous books, including the nonfiction New York Times bestselling books Presto and God No, and the novel Sock, and the essay collection Every Day is an Atheist Holiday, all available at your Chicago Public Library. Penn's new novel is Random. 2 weeks before his 21st birthday, random anti-hero and Las Vegas native Bobby Ingersoll finds out he's inherited a crushing gambling debt from his scumbag father and stumbles upon enough cash to pay off the debt and change his family's fortune. More importantly, he finds himself with a new, for lack of a better word, faith. He devises and devotes himself to random, a philosophy where his life choices are based entirely on the roll of his lucky dice. What follows is a rollicking exploration into not so much what defines us as what divines us when we give over every decision, from what we eat to whom we marry to how or when we die, to the random fall of 2 numbered cubes. Now please join me in welcoming Penn Jillette to the CPL stage.
Thank you so much for coming on down. I know we changed the date. We've been screwing around with this, so thanks a lot for hanging in there and coming by. First thing I want to say before I even start talking about the book is many of you may have heard that Teller about, 6 weeks ago or something, had a quadruple bypass on his heart. And I don't think about that much because I see him when I'm in Vegas every day and he's doing great. But everybody asks me when they see me on the street and stuff how Teller's doing. So some of you may wonder. Teller's doing fabulously. He's really doing wonderfully. He's recovering faster than expected, and because he's that kind of guy, he's doing every single thing in physical therapy that the doctors ask him to do. And the only problems he's really having is fighting with the doctors who don't want him to go back on stage until January, and he would like to be on stage right now. But other than that, he's doing wonderfully, and I want to just get that out of your minds if you're worried about that, because, boy, I certainly have been. And now I'll talk a little bit about the book. I wanted to tell you where the idea came from, or really where I took the idea. I'm going to tell you a few stories all mixed together here. And I've changed a lot of the details, well, to make the stories better, but also for privacy reasons, which you'll understand as I begin telling. About 30 years ago, in the 90s, I don't remember exactly when, we were doing, me and Teller were doing a series over in London called The Unpleasant World of Penn and Teller. And we were working with, obviously, a whole Brit crew. We were the only Americans there. And one day after we'd been working, it was a whole series. We were there for several weeks. One of the women in a rather high-up position in the show called me into her office and shut the door. And, of course, I thought, hey, now. But I was wrong. She asked me, she said she was trusted me and she felt kind of close to me. And could she tell me something that was rather important to her? And I said, well, sure. And she said, but first, have you read this book called The Dice Man? And I said, no, I haven't. She said, well, I don't really want to talk to you about this till you've read that book. Would you read it? And so I had a couple days off, and she'd given me homework. So I went and I read the book, and a few days later we were back to work, and she called me back in the office and said, what'd you think of the book? And I told her, and I'll tell you now, the book is a parody. It's a satire written in the 70s of 70s self-help, self-improvement, mostly centering on Werner Erhard and the Est thing, if anybody remembers that, but 70s self-help. And I don't like satire and parody, almost without exception. It's just not a form that I enjoy. I'd rather hear people speak directly to me than to veil it that way and use exaggeration. So I'm really not. I really wasn't a good audience for it in that way. And I also don't, as a rule, read comedy, and this read rather funny, and I just didn't strike my heart. But the thing he's making fun of, the thing he uses as an example of a crazy self-help thing that he's lampooning and ridiculing, is the idea of living dice life. And what he means by that, or what I gleaned from that, is that when we have decisions that we're going to make, we always have this, and these are all my words, not his from the book, we have, as Marvin Minsky at MIT describes, as a society of mind. So we kind of have a voting system, for lack of a better metaphor, in our minds that decide what we're going to do. So we have like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 options of what we'd like to do in any situation, and we kind of vote inside our head, and we go with the one that we want to do the most, which is obvious, of course, and seemingly the only way you could do it. But what's fascinating is all those other possibilities were really part of us. We really wanted to do those. They aren't things we didn't want to do. We just want to do something more than that. And if you go through your whole life, you're always going with the thing you want to do most, which is really not as nothing a statement as it seems, because the second, third, fourth place winners, if you will, in this race in your mind are still parts of you that never get expressed. So the character in this book, what I'm saying is being made fun of, makes a bell curve when he's going to make a decision, only when he's not sure what he wants to do, only when there's a decision to be made. He makes a bell curve. And of course, dice are in a bell curve. 7 is most likely, it then trails off to 2 and 12 on either side, which is about 2.65% likely. And then you take the things you most want to do, and you give them a number that's right in the middle of the bell curve. Things you want to do less, down on the side, and then you roll the dice and act instantly on it. And in the book, this leads the guy to some crazy situations that are, like I said, lampooned. But that idea that the loser parts of us are also valid parts of us, and the idea that making a decision without doubt and without hesitation is a beautiful thing, well, that was really good in the book. I really liked that part. So I ended up enjoying the parts that the author was making fun of, you know? And so I said all that to the woman, and she said, yeah. And then she told me a story. She said that if just a month or so before, I mean recently, before I was talking to her, she was very close to her brother, and she went over to his apartment, and she found that he had killed himself. He'd hanged himself, and she was the one who found the body. And she did all the things that you have to do when a loved one does something like that, and got through the memorials and the paperwork and the business. And then, and I don't like using psychological terms I'm not qualified to use, but to quote her, she became catatonic and could not function. And she sat on her couch for a long time and just wasn't showering, wasn't eating, wasn't calling friends, wasn't even watching TV, just sitting, couldn't make any decision to do anything. And she remembered this kind of silly book, because her opinion of it and mine were the same. She remembered this silly book from a while ago, and she'd read it a little bit before, and she had dice at her house, like in a Yahtzee set or whatever they have over in Britain. They got crazy shit there. But she had dice there anyway. And she thought about doing this. So she set up her little bell curve, which you can do mentally, of course, and with simple stuff like take a shower, have a piece of toast, call a friend. And she threw the dice, and she said the feeling was amazing. Because the instant those dice landed, the instant they landed, all her doubt just went away. And she just acted on it. And then the next decision she just acted on. And her whole life just changed. She was just acting on all the dice stuff. So she told me this story, and of course I really had no idea what to say. You know, she's laying a lot of info on me real fast, you know, about her brother's death and stuff. And so I said to her, well, how long did you do that for? And she said, well, and she opened up her briefcase, because this is the 90s when not everybody had a backpack. I'll get it. They had briefcases. She opened up her briefcase, and there in her briefcase were two dice, rather ornate. And she said, I'm still living dice life. I still do it all the time. And I said, wow, you know, when we came over here, you were the first choice for your position on this show, and the producers thought we'd never get you because we were not an important enough show. We couldn't really afford you, and they were really surprised when you took the gig. And she said, yeah, I rolled the 9. And I said, so you didn't want to do this gig? And she said, no. I wanted to do it. I just didn't want to do it most. But it's a real part of me. I rolled the 9, took the gig, and I'm very happy I did. I said, wow. She said, that's part of me I wanted to express, but wasn't the part of me I wanted to express the most. So I didn't take the first 2 or 3 choices of what I would have normally taken. So that's how I ended up meeting you. That's how I ended up on this show. And I said, whoa, well, your position, you're making a lot of decisions on our show. Are you doing any of those at random? And she went, only the things I'm not sure of. And I went, so our show's being done at random. And she said, parts of it. And that story, that whole afternoon with her, and then working with her for the next few weeks, it was like a diamond bullet. You know, I just couldn't get it out of my head. And of course, showbiz being what it is, time went by and we kind of lost touch. I guess I've talked to her once or twice in the 25 years that have passed. And but I told that story to everybody. I mean, all my friends, I would tell them about this dice idea and how this woman had lived dice life and how maybe she still was. And 2 friends of mine, I'm going to kind of mash these together because their stories are so similar, but they were actually 2 or 3 years apart. Many years later, like the turn of the last century, like I said, they kind of bracketed that, 2 different people. Both women called me up and they said, you know, Penn, you told me that story over dinner about that woman doing dice life, and I'm going through a really hard time now. One of them, it was with an adult child that they had. Another one was with a really horrible, messy, miserable divorce. And they said, I've felt paralyzed by inactivity, so I decided I'm going to live dice life for a while, see if I can pull it together. And I said, whoa, don't do that. I think it's wicked stupid. I mean, the reason we make decisions is because they are the best decisions. And that's what makes us human. And we've got to do that. And I think it's dangerous. Maybe you don't want to express those things. You don't want to do it. I really advise against it very, very much. But if you do it, tell me everything. And they both did it. And they were really interesting stories. And one of them, I talked to her on the phone recently, and she said I'm allowed to say all of this. The other one, I haven't gotten complete permission, so I'm not gonna give their names anyway, so it doesn't matter much. But just in terms of my heart, I can tell these stories with impunity and morally. One of them said, "Well, the big difference is sexually. You know, I'm really shy, but you know, lately at Starbucks, I I say, you know, 7, I'll get a latte, and 6 and 8, I'll get myself an Americano, and then get out further out on the 3s and on the 9s. I guess I'd have one of those fruity tea things, and if it's a 2, which I might ask the guy behind me if he wants a blowjob in the men's room." And I said, "You're really doing that?" And she said, "Yeah, and I get Starbucks every morning, and 2 comes up." I said, "This has happened more than once?" She said, "Yeah, it happened twice, and I really liked it." She said, "I would never, ever have done that, but it's part of me that I really wanted to express, and I just rolled the dice." And there's no question. They both said there was no question. They just acted instantly. It was religious, the way they reacted. Just, this is what the dice are telling me to do. And the same person I just mentioned with Starbucks, she's a biochemist and very in demand and wicked crazy smart. They're both wicked crazy smart, but she's eminently employable. So this story is even goofier. She got up one morning to go to work, and she rolled a very unlikely number. I don't know whether it was a 12 or a 2, but she rolled an unlikely number and decided not to go to work, and instead fly to Miami and take 5 days off. Just called the office and said, "I'm not coming in. I'm going to Miami." No, not claiming to be sick, not claiming anything. I'm just not coming to work. I went to Miami for a week and then came back and started the next week at work, figuring, of course, she would be fired. She had no doubt she'd be fired, find another job. And the boss came to her and said, "We realize that you really are overworked and you're an important part of the team, so we're giving you an assistant and a raise." She said, "I would have never found that out without the dice." And both of them lived by the dice for 2 or 3 weeks, maybe it was a little longer, maybe a month, a little over. And then since then, and I checked when I was going out to talk about the book, I called both of them to check in, and they both do it still about once a year. They pull it out and do like 2 or 3 weeks when times get tough for them and it's hard to make decisions. And I was so taken with this idea, and I always thought that it should be a TV show. So around, once again, the turn of the century, I went in and pitched it to Showtime and a few other places. I had a whole detective kind of idea of a guy living this, and Showtime bought it, but it's show business, so that doesn't mean they make it. So we never made it, and then I sold it again, and they never made it. And then the lockdown came, the plague hit, and Ivanka Trump said that everybody should learn a language and write a book, and so I did those things because I do everything Ivanka Trump says. And but it was really weird because I've written 9 books, and my books are all written in stolen moments. I write them, from the airport to the gig. I write in the car and stuff. And I have friends, really good friends, who are real no-kidding authors. I mean, no-kidding authors like Nicholson Baker and Elizabeth McCracken and Neil Gaiman and Stephen Fry are all friends of mine. I'll be talking to them about writing books, and they all have these rituals. I make this particular kind of tea, I get up at this time, I work for 3 hours, then I take a break, and then I do this, and then I say, I don't do any of that. I just got to write whenever I can. And they go, "That's because you're a magician. We are writers." So for the time that during the lockdown, and I'm not saying this makes the whole plague worth it, but it's nice. During the lockdown, I was actually doing that. So this is the first book I've written where I sat down to write a book because I figured that I was just sick of talking to Hollywood people about the idea and having to, and I collaborate. I mean, there may be few people in show business that have collaborated more than I have. I've been working with Teller, for 47 years, and we collaborate on everything. But my collaboration with Teller is based on the fact that I have the best business partner who has ever existed. I mean, Teller is never late for anything. He's almost always right. He is the best magical mind alive today on the planet. He is polite, he is kind, and he's very easy to work with. He always will go for the crazier idea. So you're never compromised into beige when you're working with Teller. But working with the Hollywood people, I just got so sick of it. It was wonderful to sit down and really write this book based on where I wanted it to go without a lot of compromise. So I wrote the book, and it came out, and now kind of the punchline to this particular part of the story is that I get calls from a couple TV people that said, you might not have thought of this, Penn, but the book you just wrote might be a great TV series. And I went, whoa, you are brilliant. Could it be? So it may end up being that anyway. And the character, the lead character in the book is named Bobby Ingersoll. And some of you may recognize the name Robert Ingersoll. He was the most popular atheist of the 19th century, called the Great Doubter, wrote it, spoke at Chautauqua, was the highest paid public speaker at that time, along with Huxley, also talking about atheism. And Robert Ingersoll has always been an inspiration to me, so the character's named Bobby Ingersoll. And he's young, and I wanted to create a character that could be really within my morality, and that was really important to me. I know this makes me sound like a child, because I know that adult writing includes characters that are bad, and the new Bob Dylan book, he talks a lot about the anti-hero, and even in the introduction they talk about this character as being an anti-hero, which I disagree with. And I know that the best things on TV now, and I'm talking about Patriot and Perpetual Grace Limited and Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, have these bad guys, really bad guys that you end up falling in love with, and you end up identifying with, and you end up rooting for. And I know that's really important, and I know that that's part of what empathy has to do, and I know that what literature is supposed to do is let us see ourselves through someone else's eyes and get a feel for that. I know all of that. I know it's really important, but I'm fucking sick of it. I want to root for good people. So I go to a great deal of trouble in the book to make the lead character, Bobby, everything he does is within my morality, and I try to conceal that. We did a show called Penn and Teller Bullshit, and it was really a Pollyanna peace and love show about trust science and be nice to each other and be kind. I mean, that was the point of every single show we did. But in order to conceal that, we called the show bullshit. We said motherfucker a lot, and we had naked people around hoping no one would notice what pussies we really were. And on this book, I try to do the same thing. I have a character who I think is completely within my morality, but I have a lot of kinky sex and goofy stuff, and hope that conceals the fact that I've written something that is not an anti-hero, not a bad guy. And it was really hard to write a character that could follow random and still stay within my morality. And one of the reasons I was so taken by the idea of someone living random is it's so totally the opposite of the way I live. Teller and I are incredible tight asses. Incredible. We leave almost nothing to chance. We do stuff on stage that looks very, very, very dangerous, and the stuff we do on stage is very, very, very safe. Houdini said he would not do anything more dangerous than sitting in his living room. And of course, you cannot eliminate risk. It's always there. But the idea of doing something on stage that is actually dangerous, I believe that itself is immoral because the people watching are complicit in your danger. I don't think you have a right to do something dangerous on stage that you know is dangerous, because the audience is then in some way responsible for your stupidity. And I know you can, I know that some people do show up in order to see people hurt. I know they go to NASCAR to see people hurt. And I know that, David Blaine and Chris Angel actually brag on the fact that stuff they're doing is dangerous. And people, I guess, go to see that. But if you want to come to my show to see someone hurt, fuck you. Go see something else. I do not approve of that at all. Things should be really, really safe. And the way you do that is by being very careful and not injecting random into the system. And bits that I've been doing a lot and that I'm very familiar with. I mean, now, this is not a bit, I'm just kind of talking to you. But when I'm doing performance in our Vegas show, people who've seen the show multiple times will tell you I scratch my nose in the same place, I clear my throat in the same place, till it takes the same number of steps. And when we do something that looks dangerous, we have at least 5 levels of safety, including the crew running out and grabbing us before anyone could be hurt. We do everything very, very carefully. And I say, and when it's time to brag about the Penn and Teller show, the top of the list of the things I brag about is the fact that neither Teller nor I, nor anyone working with us, has ever been injured doing tricks of ours. And we're the only magicians for which that's true. And I'm really, really proud of it. And I also have a family, and I have, 2 or 3 dozen people that work, maybe more than that, who work on the Penn and Teller show, who, if I pick something I really sincerely wanted to do, honestly in my heart, and I rolled a 12 and decided not to do the show that night, the damage I would do to other people would be too great. So I go to a great deal of trouble to make my protagonist in the book very young and not having responsibilities and not having people depending on him once he accomplishes the big thing that is the turning point when he gives his life to chance. So I'm really kind of obsessed with that. A lot of people have asked, writing the book, which I think I've kind of touched on, but I want to say more about it. They've asked me in writing the book if I wrote any of it at random, if I rolled the dice for decisions. And no, because I never had a situation where I had more than one good idea. I'm clutching to get one good idea, so getting more than that to be able to roll it. Also, since we're maybe doing this as a TV show, I have been interviewing showrunners who are the big bosses in television, the head writer, and it wouldn't be me because I'm a magician. They wouldn't let me do that, but they need to get like a grown-up to be head writer and run the show. So I'm interviewing these people, and of the 5 people we talked to, 3 of them said, and one thing I've been thinking is for the writer's room, maybe we'll actually roll the dice to make decisions on what happens in the show. And I said, no, you stupid motherfucker. We're going to hire you because you have good ideas and do them. If it's rolling the dice for random ideas, we can do that and not pay you. Goodbye. So we're not really doing that. But I'm going to read you, how are we doing it? I'm going to read you a hunk of the book, just the preface, and I'll also answer some questions and talk a little more. And by the way, when I get to the questions, they don't have to be about the book. They can be about anything. And when I do the signing out there, you didn't have to buy a book. You want me to sign anything, I'll sign anything you want, and I'll take any pictures, do anything at all. I don't care. I got nothing else to do. I spent the afternoon with Tony, and when I'm in Chicago, I'm always with Tony. So Tony and I already spent the afternoon together, so I can spend the evening with y'all. So no worries here. So I'm going to read a little bit of the book, and I'm going to read the preface. And it starts with a quotation. Now, here's the nutty thing. When I do interviews about Penn and Teller, You know, the people that interview me never know anything. They never watch the show. They just, they're just writing an entertainment column. They don't care. So they have one question. Why doesn't Teller talk? And we're done. But when you write a book, there's like grown-ups that are writing about the book, And so the first guy that interviewed me, he was from Publishers Weekly, and he read the whole book. But not only that, he read like 4 others of my books. And he had like an hour interview. And he was writing one goddamn paragraph. And he knew everything. And he said to me, I thought it was really interesting, Penn, because you start your book out with a quotation from a physics book. And it was really interesting to me that you used that exact same quotation from the exact same book in your other novel, Sock. And I went, the same one? He said, yes, what's the significance of that? And I went, it's a really important quotation to me? And he said, yeah, it's interesting, it's in both places. I said, yeah. So next time I'll check. Maybe I'll read the other books I've written before I write a new one. But here's the quotation. In everyday life, you will find that your boss, your lover, or your government often try to manipulate you. They propose to you a game in the form of a choice in which one of the alternatives appears definitely preferable. Having chosen this alternative, you are faced with a new game, and very soon you find that your reasonable choices have brought you to something you never wanted. You are trapped. To avoid this, remember that acting a bit erratically may be the best strategy. What you lose by making some suboptimal choices, you make up for by keeping greater freedom. And that's written by David Rule in a book called Chance and Chaos, which, although he's talking a lot about his romantic life and his work life, that's actually in a physics book, which kind of blows my mind. But anyway, that's what David Rule wrote. And here's what I wrote. The theory of our game. 1, making a decision promptly is often more important than making the best decision. 2, committing to and acting with passion on a decision are often more important than which decision is made. Doubt is weakness. 3, no one can outsmart random. 4, random is dangerous. Rock, paper, scissors. Look deep into your opponent's eyes. She just threw this sequence. Rock, rock, paper, rock, scissors, 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 paper, rock, rock. You've won 5 of these last 10 throws, including the very last one with your paper. This next one is the tiebreaker, but just a temporary tiebreaker. There will be more ties. You've got another 90 throws to go with her. The wager is for the best of 100 throws. If at the end of those 100 throws you have more wins than she, you get the deed to her house. If she has the most wins, you are going to be homeless. You do not have any nest egg. If you tie at 50 wins each, you both keep your respective houses, and you've both had 100 throws of heart-racing excitement. You've both been alive in the here and now for about 17 minutes. More life than many people experience in a lifetime. The tempo is slow. There is no rush. Look hard into her eyes. Smell her. Feel the vibe in the room. Psych her out. While looking deep into her eyes, say, my next throw will be paper. Really, honest, pinky promise. Does she believe you? Are you telling the truth? What is her optimum move? What is your optimum move? Your best bet is to throw random. In the long run, random always wins. Your opponent can't figure out your process if you have no process. But you can't naturally throw random. You can't generate random. No one can. Human minds generate patterns. It's what they do. It's what we do. Humans do patterns. Some professional gamblers memorize pi starting at the 100th decimal place and use those numbers to make decisions that their opponents can't possibly predict. Random is power. Completely committing to random would be a superpower. You throw paper, and eventually you win her house. So that's the way the preface starts. Another part of this idea that really grabbed me is the book is kind of in a way about atheism, because everything I do is kind of in a way about that, I suppose. But I'm really interested in how easy it is to be religious, how easy it is to believe, and how much it creeps into my heart. I lost, 120 pounds about 7 years ago in a really short period of time. And I did it with the help of a NASA scientist by the name of Ray Cronise. And it was really interesting how we started, because Ray is also an atheist, and a very strong one. And he said to me before we started, he said, "You know, Penn, we know that cults work. Cults work really well. We were selected by evolution to want to be a part of a cult, be a part of a team. And we've seen how easy it is to fall into that. So you're going to lose weight by joining a cult. And the cult is going to be one person, and the leader of that cult is me. And you are going to follow what I say using all the rules of a cult. And you know it's bullshit, and I know it's bullshit, but at some level, we won't care. And it will work." And I said, "Whoa." And he said, "First rule, you're not going to talk to anybody about this. I'm going to cut you off from your family and friends. You're not going to talk diet with your friends. You're not going to talk diet with your family. You're just going to do everything I say. And you're going to do everything I say." Now, I've done a lot of research into diet and weight loss, but half of what I'll tell you, at least, is wrong. But we don't know which half, so you'll just believe everything. And you will not be reasonable in any way. You will be an absolute zealot. So we know for a fact that if you have a half strip of bacon, it makes no difference to your weight loss, but it makes difference to the cult. So you will not have one raisin. You will not have one piece of fruit. You will eat precisely what I tell you to the exact calorie, and you will not fuck up once because it's a sin. And you will be a complete devotee. You will completely follow everything I say. And then when we get to your target weight, which will be on your birthday, we'll all laugh about this, say it was all bullshit, and isn't that amazing how it felt? And everybody's amazed that I lost 123 pounds in 4 months. But that's not the most amazing part of the story. The most amazing part of the story is he predicted my weight within a half pound 4 months in advance. Exactly where I would be. The trajectory was absolutely perfect. And during that time, I didn't write about this much in the book about weight loss because it wasn't really on topic. But during that time, the feeling of totally giving yourself up to something that's arbitrary is really powerful. It's crazy powerful. And I wanted the character to really explore that. So the character decides to live his life at random. And in the book, I describe in detail how it feels to throw those dice the first time and to see the answer and just act upon it instantly with no doubt whatsoever. And the seductive quality of this, the character, is that idea of taking this really natural powerful, and I think beautiful thing, which is doubt, and just eliminating it from your life. So you're able to move very strongly through what you do and do it absolutely all the way through, just like that. So the book is about a character who is in an impossible situation and is going to die, and then one incredible burst of luck saves his life and saves his whole family's life. And he decides that he died on that day, at that second. And then the rest of his life is dedicated to chance, and he will live his life randomly. And when I was writing the book, I had a great deal of fun putting in a lot of reality. You know, I've written books on essays. I've only written 2 novels. All the rest of the books have been essays or magic tricks. And it's really interesting to me. I think it was Niels Bohr who talked about the difference between, many people have, but it's where I happen to be reading it most recently. The difference between fact and truth. That fact is, you know, true or false. You can prove it, you can check it. And truth is not only different from that in that you can't prove it, but also truth can be contradictory, and still 2 sides can be true. And so when I write the books on essays, I try a little bit, and I fuck it up all the time, and I cheat all the time, but I try very much to keep the stories at least within a certain parameter of morality to what happened. But when I'm writing novels, I find it's much easier to get to the truth. I have a huge amount of many stories in this book actually happened in a way that it's almost reporting. But I don't have to slavishly stick to the facts because it's fiction. I mean, one of people's favorite characters in the book is Melvin, a man who backs proposition bets. When Taco Bell said that if Skylab landed in a certain square of the ocean, everybody in the United States would get a free taco. The guy who bankrolled that was my friend Norman, who was the character of Melvin. And all the stuff that's described in his crazy life is actually true that happened with him. And I'm able to write sex stuff without having to worry about, you know, who I'm implicating and stuff like that. And probably most important in this book, my mentor and my dear friend and my hero, who worked with us for 25 years, Johnny Thompson, who died 3 years ago. In this book, he's alive because it's my fucking universe. Fuck you, Johnny gets to live. And Piff the Magic Dragon shows up, and a very, very thinly disguised Tony Fitzpatrick shows up. You're disguised. I didn't have to clear it with you. I don't use your name. Well, I use some of your name. I don't use your whole name, the real name, and you're not an artist. You know the same job. You're a detective. But for those of you, and I'm talking in Chicago, so that means all of you who know Tony, you might notice he pops into the book. It's a small part, Tony. Don't get too excited, but you show up, you know, because Tony's always in my heart, so he's in the book too. But I got to go through and create that kind of thing. Now, I'm going to take questions in a moment, but I just want to say I'm very uncomfortable talking in public without leading up to a card trick. So I'm gonna do a card trick, and then I'll answer questions after that. But I want to do this card trick has nothing whatsoever to do with the book. It's just because I like doing tricks, and I'm going to do one, even though it's got nothing to do with the book, because I think it might be fun. It's a new trick I'm working on, so I'm going to give it a try. And I wanted to know, you right here with the mask on, would you, are you wearing pants with back pockets? You have jeans with back pockets? And are the back pockets empty? Okay, can you empty them or can you get to them? I need you to have 2 back pockets. Okay, I need both of them to be empty. And I'll also tell you that I was coughing. That's allergies, and I have been tested. So you might want to take your mask off when you come up, but I certainly don't demand that. Just that people be able to see your expressions better. Because I'm picking you because I'm looking out here, and you kind of look like a smartass, and you're the one I want to get up here for this. So if you want to come up here, I'll show you a trick. And because I need both hands, I'm going to go off mic, and I'm sure I can fill this place. I'll just use my street performing voice, and we'll be. And I'm going to do a card trick. And what is your name, our newest friend? Kim. Kim? Hello, Kim. I'm going to use this deck of cards. But this deck of cards is a Penn and Teller deck of cards, which means although it says an ordinary deck, it's not. It's gimmicked like crazy. And I will. It's marked and it's stripped, and there's some other stuff. I'm not going to use any of that for the trick. But I was backstage and I shuffled these. I want to get these. See, it's got a instruction cards. There's tricks you can learn here, and it also has a 14 of spades, which is a punchline for another thing. And I was backstage shuffling these like a freak to try to mix them up. But I think you can see that they're pretty mixed up. I mean, they're not in new deck order or anything. And I want you to see that, Kim. And we'll do a few more things to make sure they look pretty mixed up. And I want to ask you about. I don't mean to insult you, but this trick has to work right. You understand the terminology when I say to cut the cards? Mm-hmm. It means somewhere near the middle, you cut them wherever you want. And then to complete the cut is to put that on top so the card that was formerly in the middle is now on top. You understand that terminology, right, Kim? So that's to cut the cards, that's to complete the cut. Now, can you do that without spilling them all over the floor? Can you cut them? Now what was in the middle is now on top, and then move it to the bottom, and that's completing the cut, okay? So cut them and complete the cut. Beautiful, Kim. Now, do you think, Kim, you can do that behind your back?
Yes.
Okay. Take the cards behind your back and cut them so the middle cards are now on top. Okay? Okay. Then take the top card, put it in your left pocket right here. Left pocket with the face against your ass. Okay? Yeah. Okay. But don't show it to me. Yeah. Okay. And then take the next card. No. Put it down. Take the next card, put it in your right pocket with the face against your ass. You can tell because it's face down. You can tell. Just slide it right in there. Okay, the next card right there. So you cut the cards. I'm going to put these over here because I'm going to give these to you afterwards, right after that, okay? Now, I'll put that back together in a second. Yeah. Now, you took, let's just do this, Kim. Now, I picked you because you're a smart ass. Shuffle the cards up, show them they're different, shuffle them up, and then you cut them, then you cut them, then you cut them, then you can shuffle them. And then you went behind your back and you cut them, took a card out of the middle, put it in that back pocket, took another card out of the, cut them, put another card in the middle, put them in that back pocket, then brought them out, shuffle up, put them over there, right? The cards are over there. You've got one card face towards your ass here, and another card face towards your ass there, right? Two cards. Now, did anybody over there, could you see which cards you took? No one saw a glimpse of it. I didn't see a glimpse of it. So you have one card in that pocket, one card in that pocket. I'm going to do the easy part. Then you are going to do the hard part, okay? Because you're a smart ass. You're going to do the hard part, okay? So I'm going to tell you that the card you picked out of the middle, one of the cards you picked out of the middle was the ace of spades. Another card you picked out of the middle was the jack of spades. You picked both spades. You look at the cards, they're different. Jack of spades, ace of spades. That's what you pulled out of there. Jack of spades, ace of spades. Now, you could have taken the ace of spades, put it in your right pocket, face against your ass. You could have taken the jack of spades, put it in that pocket, face against your ass. Or you could have taken the jack of spades, put it in that pocket, ace of spades in that pocket. So it could be ace of spades, jack of spades. Or it could be ace of spades, jack of spades. Now, using only your smart ass, you tell me which card is which. Ace of spades, jack of spades, ace of spades, jack of spades. You tell me.
Ace of spades, jack of spades.
Ace of spades, jack of spades. So we took the cards. You want to change your mind?
No.
You're sure of it? Your ass just knew right away. You didn't look at it when you put it back there, right? You're just totally with your ass. You say ace of spades, jack of spades. Just like that, you said that. Took the cards out, showed them to you, shuffled them up, cut them, shuffle them up, cut them, behind your back, cut them one, boom, one here, cut them again, boom, one there. Took them back, shuffled them up, put them back over there, right? That's what happened. And you say you can tell with your ass, right? You're saying, I can tell with my ass, Penn, that this is the ace of spades and this is the jack of spades. Is that what you said?
Sure.
That's it? What are you sure? You can change if you want.
Nope, not gonna.
You're sure?
Positive.
You're absolutely sure? And you did this entirely with your ass. You didn't peek. Okay, let me explain something to you now. I did a show called Penn and Teller Bullshit. I did it for 8 years. I did like 93 shows. And yes, there was peace and love and topless women running all through it. But there was one overwhelming point that I was trying to make to America. And that was there is no such thing as ESP, there's no such thing as mind reading, there's no way you can tell something that you have not perceived with any part of your body, including your smart ass. I tried to convince you of that, and once again, I set this up with Kim to do it again. Pull this out of your pocket, show the ace of spades right there.
This should be that eight.
No, I'm telling you, it doesn't work. Show the ace of spades there. That's my point. And show the jack of spades right there. And the ace of spades and the king of spades. I said jack, didn't I? And you have the ace of spades right, jack of spades wrong, and you can take all the rest of this. Thank you so much. I'll let you assemble that as you go. But that's Kim right there. Kim. Now I guess I'll do some questions now, but I want to first of all eliminate 2 questions that I don't like to answer. First question is, someone of you is thinking right now, here's what I'm going to ask him. I'm going to tell him, because I'm so wicked smart, that I know that dice always add up to 7 on the opposite sides. And these dice on this cover, I see a 5 here and a 2 here, and I see a 4 here and a 3 here, so the opposite sides cannot add up to 7. Why did you do that? And the answer to that question is, fuck you. They sent me the cover to check. I didn't check it carefully enough. Fuck you. It's also not dice. It's the cover of a book. You couldn't use this in a game anyway, so fuck you. And the other answer I'll give you now, the question I will tell you is, you cannot ask me what Starbucks my friend goes to. Is there a question there, anybody?
If you have a question, please come up so that we can all hear. We'll start with one question from the virtual viewers in the chat,
Okay.
and that is, do you think of magic as an art or a science or both?
The question is, do I think of art as and magic as an art or a science or both? Well, it's certainly not science, because you're not trying to learn about the world and predict it. I think it's an art form. Teller's definition of art is, I think, the most interesting one here. Teller says art is anything you do after the chores are done. And I think that if you are a mall Santa Claus, or you're acting in porn, or you're acting in Shakespeare, what you are is an artist. And I think that magic is therefore an art form. The interesting thing that Teller also said about magic, which I think is probably the most profound thing said about magic in our lifetime, and that is magic is the unwilling suspension of disbelief, which is a fascinating way to look at it. When you go to see a Shakespeare play and they just say, we're on an island, there's a shipwreck, and this guy is king, even though you saw him last week in a deodorant commercial, you willingly suspend your disbelief to go along with it. When a magician says, my hand is empty, you say, I don't know, better check it. This box is empty, I don't know. So the unwilling suspension of disbelief is, I believe, what makes magic interesting. And the magicians who say that the idea behind magic is just to go on a magical journey, put your skepticism aside, that's bullshit. That's what you do with the Marvel movies. That's what you do with any fiction. But with magic, the whole idea is to find out how the mind works and how you can be deceived. What question have you got?
It's funny you just brought up Shakespeare. I saw the production of Macbeth that Teller directed here a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, did you get to see it, or by chance have any input on it, or?
First of all, I had no input whatsoever. I was trying to find a way to take credit for it because it was brilliant.
It was great.
I saw it and I loved it. and really thought Teller did an amazing job. But I had nothing to do with it except going to the dinner beforehand, where the guy said, it says it on my sweatshirt right here. We went to the dinner where they have donors. You know, it's the what we call in Vegas the whales, the cats that gave a lot of money to the theater here in Chicago to put on the play, and there was a dinner for them, and Teller had to be there. I mean, Teller wanted to be there, sure, and but Teller also asked me to be there. I don't know why, it had nothing to do with the play, but I showed up too. And the guy who was speaking, who was this great guy, right? He put Shakespeare on in front of people. He's a wonderful guy. He's a hero. But he said to the people to get him jacked up about the production, he said, I just saw the play that Teller put together, and it is unlike nothing ever. Unlike nothing ever. That's what it says on my sweatshirt. That's my Zen cone. Like everything, always. That's the way I live. So no, I had nothing to do with it. It's now opening, a new version of The Tempest is now opening, I think, as we speak in D.C. that Teller also did after quadruple bypass and over Zoom. And I've heard that it's the best production he's done of this. It's supposed to be out of this world, and I'm hoping to get there. If Teller's well enough, I'm going to go with him and see it there. But Teller's directing of Shakespeare is, well, this is Chicago, so you probably heard tell, just wonderful. But no, I take no credit, although when someone comes up to me on the street and says, oh, you're in Penn and Teller, right? You did that Shakespeare thing. I say, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm lovely and talented. How are you?
Neither.
Two-part question. Do you know the magic shop that used to be called Denny Lee's Magic Shop, or formerly Top Hat and Wand Magic Shop?
I know of Denny Lee, yeah. I know of that magic shop, but I'm not the one who knows that stuff as well. That's all Teller.
Oh.
The one that directed The Tempest, and I didn't. Yeah.
Yes. Would you mind? My friend inherited it. He's a
really?
close-up magician.
Oh, yeah?
And mentalist, and his name is Terrence Francisco, and it's at 5115 Dean Martin Drive in Vegas.
Okay. Oh, Denny Lee in Vegas.
Yes.
I thought you meant in Chicago. We go there all the time.
Oh, would you mind?
Oh, we go there all the time.
Please
Yeah.
visit with
No. Of course I know this. Yeah, I know all about it. We always go there. As a matter of fact, my daughter just got a gig. Doing a straitjacket escape for a theater company in L.A., and we called up the Denny Lee's place right away. But I thought there was another Denny Lee in Chicago or something,
no,
and I wondered
this
why
is
you weren't
Vegas.
mentioning Jay Marshall, who was the center of magic here at Magic Incorporated. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
I met you in 2015 in Indiana after one of your shows. My name is Angel.
Hello, Angel. Nice to meet you. I still didn't direct Tempest.
I was wondering what your first written work was and what kind of brought you into the world of writing.
What's that?
What your first written work was and what brought you into the world of writing. What led you to start writing? In the first place?
What I wanted to do most was writing. I always wanted to be a writer, and that's what I wanted to be since I was very young. I mean, music and writing were the two things I wanted to do, and I ended up in magic. And the reason is, in music, I didn't have enough talent. I mean, I play upright, bebop, bass, I play jazz, but I was not the best musician in my high school, and I believe that anything you're going to go professionally into, you should at least be the best in your high school. And the other thing is what I call the Guns N' Roses problem, which is if you're Guns N' Roses and you love the Stones, why don't you just band and listen to the Stones? I don't understand. I love the Velvet Underground. I love Bob Dylan. I love Frank Zappa. And they were all doing a better job than I was ever going to. And so I didn't think I had a chance. If you really love what someone's doing, I mean, there's a great thing in the Rostock Manifesto by the Residents. They say, if you don't like supermarket music, for Christ's sake, start making supermarket music. I really don't think you should enter an art form unless parts of it bother you a lot. best case scenario is if you hate it, because then you'll do something a little bit different in it. So that's why I didn't go into music. Also, who would you rather compete with, Bob Dylan or Chris Angel? There's one you're going to win. There's another one you're going to lose. And as far as writing is concerned, I always wanted to be a writer, and I was going to seriously look into that. And then I met Teller, and Teller's insights into magic made it fascinating. And I felt at the time, and I still feel, that we have ideas in magic that are different from other people's ideas in magic. So that's why we're doing that. But in my heart, I've always wanted to be a writer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Speaking of randomness, there's an Einstein quote about God doesn't play dice with the universe. I don't think people interpret it the way he meant it, but
Right.
kind of keeping with that theme, it's kind of an easy question. Why is there something rather than nothing?
Well, my friend Lawrence Krauss has a whole book called Why There's Something Instead of Nothing, and it really explains it very, very well. But I told Lawrence Krauss that Sun Ra, one of my favorite jazz musicians, has a song called, I think, Something Out of Nothing, where he just says it's a chant by the Sun Ra band. Sun Ra, for those of you who don't know, was from Saturn and did a lot of recording here in Chicago, a lot of recording. Some of the best stuff is from Chicago. And Sun Ra said there was nothing, there was nothing, there was something, which is really all Lawrence Krauss's book says. But Sun Ra says it quicker. Richard Feynman, who I knew, said not only does God play dice, but he also throws them where we can't see them, which I think is another level of that's very important. But yes, it's true. Einstein was very bothered by quantum mechanics, because things at that level do seem to be all probability and all random. And I also, if there are physicists in the audience or mathematicians, I apologize because my use of the word random in the book is very colloquial and not a term of art in math. And someone in New York raised their hand and busted me on that, and I went, yeah. So my answer would be yeah. But yeah, I know that quote, and it was in my mind writing it too, so thanks.
And one final question.
One final question. Are you sure your question is better than the other people's in line?
I don't know, but hey, it's random. What
We'll
the heck?
find out. Okay, good.
Well, with all your writing that you've done, have you ever considered taking a swing at being a playwright?
I have written a couple plays. One of them was done in New York, and called Recreation, about recreational murder. Wasn't very good. I wrote another one that was produced in New York, off Broadway, called Do You Want to Know a Secret? Also not too good. And then I wrote a play with the guys who wrote the play that goes wrong. With those three major guys from Mischief. Teller and I wrote a play called Magic Goes Wrong, and played on the West End over in London. Did very, very well, but then the plague hit, and it had to close, and we haven't opened it up again yet. But I did work on that, and some would say that Teller and I wrote the Penn and Teller shows, which are also kind of plays. So yes. I have, and some of them less successful than others. That's true for everything, I suppose. Okay, I guess there's
So we want to thank everyone for coming. We're out of time for questions. We will start the book signing, but I want to remind you that all of Penn's books are available at your local Chicago Public Library, so please do check it out. And please join me in thanking